This morning, explosions in the city of Erbil, Iraq, after neighboring Iran launched ballistic missiles, claiming to target the local headquarters of Israel's intelligence agency. At least 4 civilians were reportedly killed, some blasts near the U.S. consulate. Others also reported in Syria. All of this raising concern about a wider spillover of violence across the region stemming from the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza.
We've done everything we can to deter this. But it obviously did not work, and the choice was up to Iran. So I do think Iran will likely amp up it through its proxies, of course.
Mick Mulroy, former Deputy Secretary of Defense for the Middle East, sounded the alarm last week over what Iran might do after the U.S. launched a series of attacks on Iranian-backed rebels in Yemen who've been targeting commercial ships, angry over the violence in Gaza. The U.S. State Department overnight condemned the new attacks in Iraq, saying, "We oppose Iran's reckless missile strikes, which undermine Iraq's stability." But Iran's Revolutionary Guards today threatened more revenge, citing what it calls recent atrocities by Israel.
صواريخ صواريخ هذا صواريخ
اي
عن شو نزل عين عين عين
عين
حاليا الساعة بيش هسه ب12
الا ربع
يا الله يا الله يا الله يا
دخيلك يا الله
دخيلك يا الله دخيلك يا الله دخيلك
يا الله
دخيلك يا الله.
اللهم صل على محمد. عين
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. حاليا دور خوين الساعة ب12. يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله شو يريد يصير يا الله.
Shalom, Kahala Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Kwakwadash. Double honors my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect, who the house of David reborn again in this generation. And Shalom to the 130 Yasharallah, who today are known as the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, who before losing our true heritage, we were known as, and still are, the true Hebrew Israelites of the Holy Bible. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about the events that are taking place right now in the Mediterranean Sea, in the area basically where Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt meet. Okay, what you're looking at right now is an attack upon U.S. interest bases, or also Israeli Mossad assets. Okay, they're basically being bombed here by Iran, not like a nation backed or supported by Iran, but actually Iran itself. Let's read this. It says, January 15th, Erbil, Iraq. Explosions reported near the U.S. consulate in Iraq. Iran claims responsibility. Now, remember, Iran are the Persians, and the Persians are the people who in ancient times, let me show you real quick. In ancient times, they came after Babylon, okay? So, let me get this better. So, in Daniel's vision, in the book of Daniel 2 and also Daniel 7, you get his vision, and ultimately the vision of the statue with the gold head was talking about the Babylonian Empire, who Daniel was giving the vision to, right? The king of Babylon. Well, ultimately, that night, Cyrus II, right? Cyrus conquered Babylon. He did it in a subtle way, right? They had lowered the water to the city by damming up water supplies to the city upstream, so that way they could sneak underneath the gates, and ultimately they took Babylon by stealth. Now, when you look at what's happening today, you're seeing the descendants of these people, the Persian Empire, the Medo-Persian Empire, they are again aiming and basically gunning for the new Babylonian Empire, that being ran by these Edomites, the nation of Edom, which ended up taking the last three empires in Daniel's vision. Okay, the last empire is basically being revealed now. We're seeing it in motion with this whole Davos 2024. Right, you're basically seeing the beast speak. Okay, and all the things coming out from it is basically the early version of this beast that these Edomites want to establish. Now, that's who attacked the Israeli and the American interest here in Iraq. Okay, so this shows you that this is a big deal. It says several explosions were reported near the U.S. consulate in Erbil, Iraq. An Iraq security source told ABC News. And this is what the consulate looks like normally. This is Revelations 11 and 14. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. So you see, John the Revelator here was shown visions of, in his time, would be the future, and in our time, this would be current events that are happening, right? John had just witnessed World War II, like we witness it, right? Through videos, through recollections, however the Lord shows these visions, to the prophets. I'm guessing it's gonna be in the same way as dreams are done. But again, these are those things that we don't learn about until we're in the kingdom. But that being said, John the Revelator had seen these visions, World War II, and he's seen that World War III was coming. He was looking at what's happening now, right? All these small wars going around, rumors of wars, nations building up, doing all these things to bring forward their armies, right? And the Lord has a hand behind all this. So all this bombing, all these political maneuvers, it's all by the will of the Lord. And especially from this prophetic event, the Iranians striking and finally lashing out at the westernized Edomite powers, it's all prophecy. And we can read about that here. This is Jeremiah 51 and 11. Make bright the arrows, gather the shields. Yahweh Bashem Yashai hath raised up the spirits of the kings of the Medes for his devices against Babylon to destroy it, because it is the vengeance of Yahweh Bashem Yashai, the vengeance of his temple. So you see, the Lord ultimately is going to destroy America. Okay, America and the Israeli, nation, right? Which ultimately is the upper end power source of the nation of Edom. And of course, there's Edomites scattered all over the world, and there is going to be a portion of Edomites that are going to survive these end world Armageddon events, and those Edomites are going to be put right into captivity. Because you see, what's going to happen is once everything goes down, there's going to be, it's an unknown amount of time from when the elect, that being the 1/3 of the Negro Latino Native Americans, those who have woken up in these end days, have returned to the Lord and are doing the required works and have the required faith to make it to the end and be saved, while those elect are raised up into these chariots, there's going to come destruction upon the earth. And that destruction, it tells us in the Bible, is going to destroy 1/3 of man. Now that's going to include the majority of these Edomites who are in these westernized nations, America, Israel, and other places are going to get hit around the world, right? Over in Russia too, because remember, what's the destruction that's coming? It's a destruction that's going to be both from the arrows, like it tells you here, right? Make bright the arrows. That's talking about the nuclear missiles, okay? These are the arrows that the Lord is saying to prepare, okay? Make them bright, which means prepare your military. And what has happened over these last couple of years. What have we been seeing over in China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, all these other nations which are considered enemies of America? Well, they've all been building up their military. They've been building up and showing off their militaries and their military parades. And why is that? Well, because again, the words of the Lord spoke. And what did he do? By speaking these words, he raised the spirits of the kings of the Medes. Now, who are the kings of the Medes? Well, when you look at the rulership of the Iranian people today, right, the ancient Persians, it's these four people, right? The first guy on this list here, you probably have heard about him, Ali Kermani, right? He's the supreme leader, okay? He's like the political and spiritual leader. So you see, what happened is Persia lost their king a long time ago, and the closest they have to their king is going to be like the political speaker of parliament or whatever. But these guys are just kind of like custodians. The president, I guess he would be, like I said again, he's really just there for political purposes, because what happened is in the 50s, America tried to overthrow Iran like they had done in Iraq and other places. And they they overthrew a democratically elected president. His name was Mossadegh. And when they did that, he went into exile and everything, and they brought in a puppet president, the Shah of Iran. Okay, and he ultimately was corrupt, but he was totally westernized, and the people hated him. So much so that I think he had to flee to England or something. He had to flee to a westernized country for his exile. And ever since then, because the Shah of Iran was such a corrupt politician, he basically killed off all the power, the political power in Iran, and all that was left was the religious right, okay, the imams and all those people, okay. So that was the only power that was left in this corrupt Iranian government, which is why they now rule, okay. And I'm not sure what they're going to do about their king, or if they're going to bring back a king from that lineage. I'm not sure, but the point being is that these men here are considered the kings of the Medes, right? And the thing is that the Lord, he's currently raising their spirits up. Just today, you had this guy here, the president. Oh, I'm sorry, not today. Last couple of days, this man, he gave a speech at the UN, basically giving a eulogy to their top general who was assassinated by the Trump regime, basically these Edomites. And he basically kind of waxed on about how they missed him, and he's not going to be forgotten, and he'll be avenged. And not only that, but the nation has been, you could tell it's been adjusting itself by the nation of Iran raising the black flag, which is a sign that it's going to war. They've also have increased their weaponry, right, by showing off weapons that they've built in these massive underground tunnels where they keep the majority of their weapons and airplanes and missiles to protect them from the satellites and the airplane that Esau has out there. See, this is the people who Edom right now is facing off of. This is why there's a video of an old army general who basically came out and said that Edom's plan is to start 7 wars in 7 nations, and the last nation that it's going to take down is Iran.
Because I'd been through the Pentagon right after 9/11. About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me, and one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran." This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq.
My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger.
And then Syria.
We had a chance to talk about a wide range of international issues, including the situation in Syria. And I have to say that all of us who've been seeing the terrible pictures coming out of Syria and Homs recently recognize it is absolutely imperative for the international community to rally and send a clear message to President Assad that it is time for a transition, it is time for that regime to move on, and it is time to stop the killing of Syrian citizens by their own government.
Lebanon.
They both had different reasons, the State Department and the White House, for wanting Israel to do it, encouraging them to do it, supporting them. Our Air Force worked very closely with the Israeli Air Force for months before this, not necessarily with a deadline, knowing when it would happen. It was always going to be whenever there was an incident, they would take advantage of an incident. The word I used was fortunate timing. When Hezbollah grabbed some of the Israeli soldiers in early July, that was then a pretext, I think that's the only word, for a major offensive that had been in the works a long time.
Libya.
Today we can definitively say that the Gaddafi regime has come to an end. The last major regime strongholds have fallen. The new government is consolidating the control over the country, and one of the world's longest-serving dictators is no more.
Somalia.
Well, violence isn't only on the rise in Afghanistan. In fact, it looks like America's shadow wars have now increased by 1. Drone strikes have long been reported in Pakistan and Yemen, but now there's news that a week ago, a U.S. drone aircraft fired on 2 leaders of the Somalian organization Al-Shabaab.
Sudan.
President Obama is sending 100 combat-equipped troops to Central Africa to advise local forces on getting rid of one of the continent's most vicious operatives, Joseph Kony, the head of the Lord's Resistance Army, a group responsible for atrocities across the region. It's the first open deployment of U.S. ground combat power to Africa since the Black Hawk Down incident in Somalia in the 1990s that killed 18 troops. U.S. troops may wind up now in Uganda, South Sudan, the Central African Republic, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It's part of a growing military effort to engage in Africa.
Finishing off Iran. I said, "Is it classified?" He said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Well, don't show it to me." And I saw him a year or so ago, and I said, "You remember that?" He said, "Sir, I didn't show you that memo. I didn't show it to you."
I'm sorry, what did you say his name was?
I'm not going to give you his name.
So go through the countries again?
Well, starting with Iraq, then Syria and Lebanon, then Libya, then Somalia and Sudan, and then back to Iran.
And when they take down Iran, the deep state that runs America, which is basically the Israelis, right, the top tribe of Edom, Amalek, right, the top Edomites, they're going to expand Israel into what's known as the Greater Israel Project, which is pretty much going to take over the whole Levant area. But they can't have the Palestinians there, and they can't have opposition there. People like Iran, which is seen as the authority in the area. So they believe once they take out these people, that's when Esau is going to rule all of the Middle East, and then hence be able to bring forward his new world order. It tells you here in this BBC report, U.S. condemns Iran for reckless missile strikes on northern Iraq. The U.S. has condemned Iran over ballistic missile strikes on Iraq's northern city of Erbil on Monday night, calling them reckless and imprecise. Iran's Revolutionary Guard said they struck what they claim were an Israeli spy headquarters in Iraq's semi-autonomous Kurdistan region. 4 civilians were killed and 6 hurt in the attack, local authorities said. Iraq recalled its ambassador from Tehran, condemning the strikes as a blatant violation of sovereignty. There has been no comment from Israel. So you can see the drums of war are beating faster and faster, Hakim. Because remember, the last 2 major prophecies that still need to be fulfilled, that ushers in the second coming of the Messiah, the returning of the Lord, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, whose true Hebrew name is Yahweh Shai, which is Hebrew for He is salvation. Right? The last 2 major prophecies is one, that they make the microchip RFID implantable mark of the beast mandatory. Okay, and we're getting close to that. Right? They're about to collapse the system of the economics around the world. They've already put into position their new CBDC central bank system. Other nations are already using it, or a form of it. Pretty much now they just got to get everybody else on board. And then besides that, World War III has to kick off. And when World War III kicks off, that's when we're going to see the second coming of the Messiah. That's when the Lord's going to show up. When all these military are drawn over there into the valley of Jehoshaphat, where Armageddon's going to take place. That's basically over there in the land of Israel. This is Zephaniah 3:8. Therefore, wait ye upon me, saith Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, until the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger. For all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. So this right here is what the Lord ultimately has planned for the end time events of the world. He's going to gather all the nations of the world. This means He's going to gather the Edomites, the Ishmaelites, the Moabites, Ammonites, all the nations, right? All the original 18 nations the Lord's going to gather there, right? The Israelites are going to go there in the form of being members of other nations' armies, right? There's going to be a lot of Israelites, Negro, Latino, Native Americans in the Babylonian American and Canadian and English and these other armies around the world. And why is that? Well, because just like in the Tower of Babel, the world has mixed itself amongst the nations. In fact, that's one of Amalek's major plans that he has sprung against his fellow brethren. All the immigration you're seeing right now goes to an agenda called the Caligari Plan. And this ultimately is one of Amalek's plans to destabilize all the other countries in the world and basically race mix everybody, so that way everybody's a Mongoloid and the only pureblood are these Amalekites, these Israelis, and hence they believe they'll be smarter and stronger and basically will be able to govern the rest of the mindless masses more easier. Like, that's ultimately the plan there. But in doing so, in fulfilling that by trying to mix all the nations with each other, what Amalek, or Edom I should say, has done is inadvertently mixed the Israelites in amongst everybody else. This is why you never know who are going to be Israelites. You know, we say the Negro, Latino, Native Americans are the Israelites, and that's true. The majority of these people is where the seed of Israel dwells, right? Our history, archaeological records, even first contact manuscripts prove this. Okay, the records of the slaves on the ship that came over were all, for the most part, Hebrew. And the thing is that a lot of Israelites didn't come on those ships. A lot of them stayed in the land of West Africa, that then eventually spread into all of Africa. Others went up into Europe and dwelt amongst Japhet and those people. And they went, and our people went eastward to China, to Japan. This is where we hear about the first samurai were black. The first emperor was a so-called black person. The first Chinese, same thing. They were black people. That doesn't necessarily mean that it was Israelites of the southern kingdom that went over there. No, but that just technically means that the southern kingdom of Israel, the so-called Negroes, were able to go into other nations and blend in. So that's why, though we say Negro, Latino, Native American, Israelites are going to come out of all the nations. So hence, back to this point, when the Lord says his determination is to gather the nations, that's talking about every nation, even the nation of Israel. Those that are going to be judged are going to be gathered there. Okay, there's no... If the Lord can control if a sparrow falls out of the air, he can control if a wicked Israelite of the northern and southern kingdom need to get judged in the war by having them enlist, having them be assigned to a certain regiment, and then having them be deployed with a certain company that ends up there in the Middle East when Yahweh Shai shows up. If that's their lot, that's their lot. This is Joel 2:20. But I will remove far off from you the northern army, and will drive him into the land barren and desolate, with his face towards the east sea, and his hinder part towards the utmost sea. And his stink shall come up, and his ill savor shall come up, because he hath done great things. So, like I said, if it's the Lord's will that you get put in the very front of this massacre, in this meat grinder, then so be it. You're gonna be enlisted in the military, and you're gonna be part of those that get sent over there. When they take the Northern Army out of America and they deploy the military, that's when we're going to see a lot of destruction come over here. That's where you're going to see the Jacob's trouble, pick up. You're going to see more violence because there's going to be less men over here. And why? Well, the scriptures say that the brides shall mourn, having no bridegroom, because of the war. Well, that's what's going to happen. Is these people are going to be drafted, or they're going to enlist, and then eventually they're going to leave, and they ain't going to ever come back. They're going to basically be deployed over there, and their deployments are going to be extended. And yeah, they'll come back every once in a while for R&R, but it's not going to be the same. A lot of them are going to be destroyed and never come back. And then when the Lord shows up, they're definitely not coming back, right? But this right here is the beginning of all this, Hakim. Because look, check this out. It says, U.S. send 1,500 troops to Syria and Iraq. Remember, where is Syria? Where is that place right by? Let's take a look at this Armageddon map. That's Syria, right there. And where is Israel? Right here, right? The Gaza Strip there, West Bank. And where's Armageddon? Armageddon is right here, right? This is the Valley of Jehoshaphat. Is basically spoken about right in here. This little valley where these mountains on this side and this side go down into this valley where the river's at. This is the Valley of Jehoshaphat, right? And this is Esdraelon, right? The plains of Esdraelon, and the city of Megiddo is right here. So ultimately, Armageddon is supposed to take place right in here, it says. Okay? So, as you can see, right, Babylon the Great, America, is sending its troops over here to Syria and Iraq. And that bombing that Iran did, it's only another step closer to World War III. So, hopefully this video was edifying. Until next time, I want to give all honor, glory, and praises to Yahweh, B'Hashem Yahushai, B'Hashem Rukok Radash. Shalom.